We live in an age where people constantly measure their level of goodness against each other. If you were to ask a group of random persons, many would tell you that they were good or decent. If you were to then ask, what makes you a good person, they may list the good things they have done, or equally likely, the bad things they don't do. They might tell you that they are followers of a particular religion, or that they practice certain spiritual disciplines. For centuries, religion was the main tool used to inform morality. However, in our postmodern era, many have abandoned the idea that religion is necessary to teach us what is morally acceptable. Many contend that people simply do what is right because that is what benefits humanity. They would say that we do not need a higher power to teach us right and wrong because humans have learned through millions of years of evolution what works and what does not. They go on to argue that, as civilizations progress even further, the need for religion will significantly decrease. Let's hear what some of the world's sharpest minds have to say about the issue of morality and religion. As we do, let's ask ourselves some questions. 1. Where do they think morality comes from? 2. Do they think that all human beings are instinctively good? 3. How do they justify their view of right and wrong? 4. What are their attitudes towards religion?
My view is that morality, our human morality, is older than religion. So instead of saying morality comes from God or religion gave us morality, for me that's a big no-no. Our current religions are just 2,000 or 3,000 years old, which is very young, and our species is much older. And I cannot imagine that, for example, 100,000 years or 200,000 years, our ancestors did not have some type of morality.
At every time I'm asked this question, if you didn't believe in God, how would you know what was good and what wasn't? Every time I'm asked to speak on this, the daily news allows me to give a different answer and give a different example. Take the simplest case of what I believe is innate, our instinct for our children. You don't have to be a parent to have this. You see a child trying to rush into the traffic. If you're not a parent, something tells you what you probably ought to be doing about it. The care and love and protection of children is instinct in us, in fact in many other species too that don't claim to be divinely ordered around. It's something we all share without having to have it explained to us. We may say that that those who don't have it, the psychopaths who don't seem to have it or who take delight in breaking this commandment or rule, we say that they're bestial, but again I refer you to the animal kingdom that doesn't allow such transgressions. Civilization, in my submission, ladies and gentlemen, begins where that evil nonsense leaves off. And we have to advance the time when more and more people will be able to civilize themselves by outgrowing religion and leaving this awful nonsense behind.
Now, let's hear from two sources who take the opposing view.
Wait a minute, guys. Why can't I just do with you what I want if I have the power? Why is that wrong exactly? It might be inconvenient for you, and you are no doubt going to be motivated to rebel, maybe, if you don't want to succumb, but perhaps you'd be motivated to rebel. But I don't see how you can make a moral case that if I can do it, I shouldn't. If you're going to make the moral case, you have to make the assumption that each person, in some sense, is created in the image of what is sacred, and you can't violate that, regardless of apparent evidence for hierarchical difference. And so it's that spirit, as far as I can tell. We were talking about alternative hypothesis that something like might meant moral virtue, and might inspired moral virtue meant right.
So my question to you is, how can a person be moral but not be a Christian?
Because you don't need to be a Christian to be moral. You can you don't need the Bible to know right from wrong. Right? There was no Bible in Noah's day. There was no Bible in the Canaanites' day. Yet they knew right and wrong and were judged by it. Everybody knows right and wrong because it's written on our hearts. That's what Will was saying before. I agree with him. He knows right and wrong. There's just no way to justify why something's right and wrong unless there's a standard beyond us, God's nature. So everybody can know right from wrong. Everybody can live moral lives to a certain extent. I mean, we all fail. We're all fallen, but An atheist can live a moral life, can do good things. The problem that I see, though, is an atheist can't justify why something is good or bad without reference to a standard outside of humanity, and that standard is God's nature. So it's not an epistemological question. It's not how do you know right from wrong. It's why is something right or wrong. That's why I keep asking the atheists who are here, why do you say your position is right? By what standard?
Would you connect that standard to a sense of spirituality within yourself, not with God alone? Or is it just only through God that you can find moral standard?
You can develop your own morals if you want. They're just not objective if they don't line up with God's nature. So, yes, people can be moral without God. They just can't justify why something is good and something's bad. That's the problem.
One of the outcomes resulting from an atheist or naturalist worldview is that it produces a sort of moral relativism. This, in turn, can lead to individual and societal dysfunction. Where there are no clear and objective definitions of right and wrong, legislation becomes difficult and distinctions, which in the past seemed clear, become blurred. Often the right voice becomes the loudest one or the one with the most authority behind it. In our postmodern societies, we see this relativism playing itself out in culture wars, identity politics, and seemingly endless debates on the value of the unborn. The atheist worldview frequently points to the many acts of violence committed at the hands of religious people throughout the years, such as during the Crusades, ritualistic suicide by radical extremist groups, or physical mutilation of members of hyper-religious cults, as one of the evils of a moral system based upon a higher power. They contrast this to the seemingly more altruistic and charitable lifestyles of those who have abandoned the God delusion in favor of a more humanistic worldview where the value for one's neighbor flows out of a natural instinct to preserve one's own life and maintain societal stability. We will not be discussing those arguments in this video, but we will cover it at another time. What if there were another standard which exists outside of you and me? Since every culture has its own ways of determining good and evil, it truly is difficult to get an accurate description of how good an individual is. I believe that there is a standard that can measure each person accurately regardless of cultural differences. The Bible has a lot to say about the state of the human race. Let's see what it says about our morality.
Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned, every one, to his own way. The heart is deceitful above all things, and desperately sick. Who can understand it? Jesus answered them, Truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who practices sin is a slave to sin. None is righteous, no, not one. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. For I know that nothing good dwells in me, that is, in my flesh. For I have the desire to do what is right, but not the ability to carry it out. For I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I keep on doing. Now the works of the flesh are evident: sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissensions, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and things like these. If we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us. Everyone who makes a practice of sinning also practices lawlessness. Sin is lawlessness.
As you can see, even from these few verses, the Bible classifies all human beings as moral failures. No matter how many good things we have done in the past, or how religious or spiritual we think ourselves to be, before this one standard we all fail. Why do you think that is? If we are truly honest with ourselves, we have all failed in some way. We have all made mistakes, despite our best intentions. This is what the Bible refers to as sin. It is the intentional or unintentional act of saying, doing, or thinking about anything which does not meet the perfect standard. And by that measure, even the kindest, most peaceful, most moral individual fails. Some objections to this line of reasoning may be: 1. What authority does the Bible have over the sacred writing of other religions? 2. What about those who, despite their failures, make every effort to live decent moral lives? How can the Mother Teresas of the world be treated the same as the Adolf Hitlers of the world? 3. How is it fair that, despite my best efforts, I am treated the same as someone who doesn't care about morality at all? 4. What about the millions of people who don't even know about the Bible? How are they judged? 5. Who is this God that the Bible speaks about? Why should his words make a difference in the way I live? If I don't care about or believe in this God, how does that affect my life? We will try to answer these and other questions in the next video in this series. Please share this video with your friends and start conversations around the topic. Feel free to share your thoughts, objections, and questions in the comment section. Until next time, be well.